Chapter 1, Cycle of Deprivation. We're going to get straight into it. Yesterday we left off the introduction at what is the point? What is the point if we're working hard in life, earning money, but still not being able to enjoy it or see any benefit of it? My reasoning for choosing this title is after my realization of there's something wrong, I decided that I don't want this to continue. I've got children. They were young at the time. I don't want this to pass on to them. So it's my responsibility to do something about it now. And the cycle of deprivation, basically, it's a theory that says poverty can run within generations. And when it comes to poverty, it's not just talking about money, but if there's a lack of good education, good employment, it can run on to the following generations. So I was just like, no, it needs to stop with me. And just going back to yesterday's statistics, when I said it was about 8 million adults in the UK who had less than £100 in savings, I checked it again. And at the moment, it's at 11.5 to 14 million adults. So you can see this problem is not getting better, it's getting worse. And more people are feeling squeezed. Like inflation, the cost of living, all of it is not working with income. So a lot of people's income is staying in the same place whilst their expenses are going up. So I started off chapter 1 talking about one of those things which to somebody who's got money, it would seem like, oh, you're so stupid. But it's like if you get a parking ticket and you get 14 days, I think it's 14 days to pay the lower amounts or the discounted amounts. And then after the 14 days, you have to pay the full amount. What happens if you're already struggling financially? You don't have the discounted amount to hand to pay straight away. So you then end up missing that discounted amount. And then you now have to pay the full amount. So let's say the ticket was £80 and then the discounted was 40. You didn't have the £40. Now you have to pay the 80. And you say to yourself, okay, at the end of the month, I'm going to pay the 80. But you're already in a tight place because at the end of the month, you don't have enough money to get you through in the first place. So how are you actually getting this extra £80? Where are you getting it from? And that was the cycle, which then you miss the £80 and the cost just keeps going up. It keeps going up. And then it gets to a point where it's last minute, it's the last resort, and now you're forced to pay 3-4 times that amount. But to somebody from the outside looking in, it would seem like, why didn't you just pay it when it was discounted? And the truth of the matter is, if you didn't have the money, it doesn't matter how much the discount was. And recently I actually saw a company they're advertising, and their service is actually to help people to pay that discounted amount, and they then have 30 days to pay back the company. And I was just thinking, imagine that. If it wasn't such a big problem, it wouldn't be a service provided by a company. So that was sort of the introduction of chapter 1, talking about a scenario with regards to that. The title of the actual book, so Addicted to Being Broke, sounds like, when I say it to people, a lot of people laugh because it sounds like that's so funny. But it's because the word addicted, we're not taught to relate it to being broke. It's that you have people who are addicted to so many different things, but not being broke. So it's kind of like addicted to being broke or addicted to being broke. Oh no. So it's two different responses. The reason why I chose to give that title to the book is because at one point I literally had that realization, and it was literally like, oh my gosh, do you realize that this could actually be an addiction? And I talk about different things that can actually be addictions but you're not aware of it. In one of my videos, I spoke about being addicted to the adrenaline you get when you leave things last minute. So there's so many different things, emotions and feelings that you might be addicted to, but you're not aware of it. So this was one for me. I thought, actually just addicted to being in this place where there's no money to spend? Because as soon as I get the money, I'm like, okay, what do I spend it on? What do I spend it on? Okay, I need to pay for this, pay for that. And then you're like, okay, no money. And then wait for the money to come in and then spend it on this, spend it on that. And in that same chapter, I talk about, I didn't spend money on like new shoes and new bags or clothes or going out. It was just the basic needs. Paying for food, paying for rent, paying for electricity, paying for the bare necessities. And that alone was a struggle. In chapter 1, I also talk about mental calculations, which is one of the biggest failures. And especially now when we got contactless. But in the book, I talk about constantly calculating things in my head. So I'd go to the supermarket and I would pick things up. And then you're like, okay, that's £2, £2.60. Okay, pick something up and you're like £1, so that's going to be £3.60. And you're doing that. But by the time you get to the till, the maths is kind of off. And mental calculation is because sometimes it just doesn't work. You need to write things down on paper. And it's only when I started writing my things down on a budgeting form and going online and using the budgeting tools. And I'll also link one on this video that you can download and hopefully that helps you. But it's only when I started using that I started to see clearly the things I have money for and the things I don't have money for. I started to see clearly like a breakdown of, okay, no. In my head, I thought that money was going to stretch much further than it did on paper. So mental calculations was one of the things that was holding me back. And a lot of people do this. When you get paid, you're just like, okay, so I'm going to do this, I'm going to pay that. But before you know it, you're like, oh, the money's finished. Where did it go? But it's down to mental calculations. Put it down on paper and you'll see the difference. And that's just such a simple tip, but it's gone such a long way helping me along my journey. So I hope it helps you as well. I also talk about the number of times I kept on saying to myself, that's it, I'm never going to be broke again. That's it, I'm never going to be broke again. But always find myself at that place. That happens so many times. And, you know, they say God loves a trier, but you're not putting a strategy in place to make sure you don't end up in this place. I was just saying it with so much confidence that I felt like that was enough, but it was not enough. Because if it was, I won't constantly keep finding myself in that same place. So the lack of money and the lack of money management skills were affecting so many different areas of my life. So as a parent, just as an individual, my social life, when people are planning to go out next week, I can't really get involved. I'm just like, I'll get back to you. And if I say yes, I'm probably going to have to cancel closer to the time, because if I don't have money to come out, I can't come out. You end up staying at home, you end up feeling sorry for yourself, and it's just a cycle that keeps repeating. In the book, I talk about the reason why I feel like it took me so long to get out of this mental situation. And it's mostly because of that. I was struggling, but I was able to be proud of it, because I'd be like, you'll never believe how much things I managed to get from like the supermarket. And it's like a supermarket that's not cheap. And I was like, I managed to get all these things. So I was able to work well with the situation, so in my mind, it just seemed like it's not that bad. And in the midst of all of this, I was still able to live a decent life. Like, we went on holidays and things like that. So it didn't seem like you are struggling. So for me, it felt like, and my surroundings, it just didn't feel like I was doing that bad. But it's only when I started coming out of my circle and coming out of my surroundings and just realizing that there's ways to make life better. There's ways to start earning more money, and there's ways to actually ease the pressure on finances. And that was revealed to me when I went to this motivational event. So it was like a really big event. There was a lot of big speakers there, including Tony Robbins. And my eyes were opened to so much. And the main thing is at the end of the event, so they're doing this sort of one day, it was a 3-day event, but I think Tony Robbins was doing 1 or 2 of those days, or the full day on the Friday. I can't exactly remember, but at the end he was selling a course, or he was selling a program, like a weekend program for people to join, and it was between like £3,000 to £6,000, something like that. And the amount of people that got up to go and purchase the course, I was sitting there like, they all got £3,000 for this course? And back then, I was quite young and not been exposed to that kind of living and people investing that much money into themselves. So it was such a big eye-opener for me. And I just thought, wow, like, you're over there struggling to just make ends meet, whilst there's people over here paying maximum amount of money to add knowledge to themselves. And it's not to compare, but it did open something in my mind to think, you need to actually work out how you're going to earn more money. You need to work out how you're going to make your situation better. One of the great sayings I was able to take away from that event was from one of the speakers, and it basically said, we're all afraid of failing, but fail anyway. And I was just like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying. And if I fail, I fail. I learn something new, and then I keep it moving. And that's been one of my drivers in life, to just go for the things I want to go for. But most importantly, what helped me through my transformation was listening to a lot of people who either have succeeded or are living the dream that they want, or just offer a lot of encouragement to make you feel like this is not the end. You may be in a place where you're struggling, but this is not the end. Your current situation does not define you. And constantly reminding myself that has really helped me to transform my journey. Like, where I was at the time when I was writing the book was a terrible situation to be in, but it was also a great place to learn from, because it's not like I'm learning these things from a book. I'm learning by trying, and I'm learning through experience. And I wouldn't change that experience, because I can see my transformation, I can see my growth, I can see my journey. So this inspires me to keep going, to see how far I can actually get. Don't let your current story deter you from where you want to go. Persevere, push yourself, keep pushing forward, and have that positive outlook mindset. Thinking about not what if it doesn't work out, but what if it does work out? What if it all actually works out? Towards concluding this chapter, I wrote about when I started to realize all the things that are going wrong, I started to question a lot of things. And one of the things is, why did I take out a loan that was for £1,700, but I'm going to pay back like £4,000 plus pounds? So things like that started to come up, and it's that desperation. It's being in a place of desperation that gets you to do things that just don't make sense. If I didn't take myself through that journey of reflecting on what was going on and the action that I'd taken, I wouldn't be where I am now. I probably might be making the same mistakes. There's so many times that I wished and I prayed for a miracle to make this all go away and to make my life better. But the truth is, God gave me everything. I just needed to work with it. I just needed to do my part. And my part is constantly learning the mistakes, avoiding them next time, and then improving. But what I take away from chapter 1 is, surround yourself with different kind of people. Surround yourself with people who are doing better than you are. There's a saying that if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. It's that ability to surround yourself with people who can help you learn and help you open your eyes to possibilities. That is the key driver to really understanding what else you can do personally. And I'm not talking about big houses, big cars, getting rich and all of that. We're just talking about being able to manage your finances. Whether you've got a lot of money, whether you don't have that much money, being able to manage what you have, that is the key, and that for me is where I wanted to get to, because once you're able to manage it, it's much easier to then make plans for other things. Thanks for getting this far. If you do have any comments, drop them in the chat so we can have the conversation, and I'll see you on my next video, which will be chapter 2.